everybody, and welcome to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Today we're going to be flying from Cable Airport to Santa Monica Airport as we are practical flight for Outschool.com. Flight time today is going to be around 30 minutes, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight. And let's go ahead and jump back in the cockpit. Alright, so we start off on the runway, which is obviously not something that we would normally do, but this is going to be something that we're just going to be learning about. Okay, we'll go ahead and I've got my track IR so I can look around the cockpit as well, which will help to aid in finding our VFR waypoints. And of course we're going to be using the pilotage navigation today, so we're going to be navigating solely by reference to ground objects and references. Alright, we'll go ahead and release the parking brake and the landing light and the taxi lights on. And we'll go full power. And she's rolling. And to maintain directional control, stay on the center line. Airspeed is alive. And there's 55, we'll rotate. And we're going to maintain VY, which is going to be our best rate of climb speed, about 67 knots there. You can see on that airspeed indicator there. And we'll be climbing to an altitude of 4,500 feet. Go ahead and start our turn in the traffic pattern to gain some altitude before we make our way westbound to our first checkpoint, which is going to be the Brackett Airport. As you can see, the beautiful scenery we have here, we can identify things. Everything is looking good. Once we get above 3,000 feet, we'll go ahead and start leaning the mixture so we get more power out of the engine. And our first course is going to be 271 degrees on the directional gyro there. Overfly the airport. We'll come right over it. That's where we took off, right down there. And boys and girls, this is just like the real thing, or as close to the real thing as it gets. It almost feels like I'm actually flying in a real Cessna 152 here. Alright, there's 3,000 feet. We'll go ahead and start to lean the mixture, which will give the engine a little more power by allowing more air to enter the combustion chamber. And we're looking for 271 degrees, which we're coming up on here. That's west is 270, as we discussed. There's about 271. We'll try to maintain that and maintain VY. And we're just above the 210 freeway. And we do see our first checkpoint out in the distance there. And once that left wing is abeam, or 90 degrees to the checkpoint, we'll start our turn. We'll change our course to our next VFR checkpoint, which is going to be the Santa Fe Recreational Area, which is a big lake. Never been there. You can swim there and fish and all that. We'll actually see that, and it will be on our left side as well. And there's 4,000 feet, so we'll continue to lean the mixture. Because as we climb in altitude, the air gets thinner, and the engine needs more air. Which is how cars used to be. They used to be carbureted, and you'd have issues when you go up in the mountains and things like that. Now cars are all fuel injected and stuff, and computers control all that, but in these airplanes we still do everything ourselves. And as you can see, we're maintaining about 271 degrees there on the compass, well, on the directional gyro, and the compass is indicating somewhat the same. Okay, we kind of overshot 4,500 feet there because we were talking. We'll go ahead and descend back down to 4,500. And we'll trim the airplane out for level flight, which is almost like cruise control in a car, but we just use this little wheel here that says elevator trim. Set our cruise power as well, which is somewhere around here. And we'll trim the aircraft for level flight. All right, well, we're abeam the Bracket Airport, which is off our left wing there, so we're going to turn to a course of 258 degrees, which is somewhere around there, to the Santa Fe Recreational Area. Now remember, as we discussed earlier on the ground, we are assuming there's no wind, and I actually have the simulator set to winds are calm. If we did have wind at altitude, we'd have to calculate for drift, and that'll be something that you'll see in our next class. We'll talk about wind correction. And there you have it. And there's the outside view. There's the 210 freeway off our left side there. We know Santa Monica is that way, which is west. And the 10 freeway, which is right there, kind of hard to see it, will actually take you to Santa Monica, and it will end at Santa Monica. And if you go eastbound, the 10 freeway will take you all the way to the state of Florida. So it goes through both coasts, Pacific, to the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. course, in reality, we do have airspaces that we have to follow, which will also be something we would talk about in a future class. And that is the Santa Fe Recreation Area, which is those two little lakes or ponds there that are connected to each other. Almost look like a swimming pool in a way. Maybe not. Maybe a very fancy looking swimming pool. And that's the Morris Reservoir over there, that area of water, which unfortunately was, that whole area here was on fire not too long ago. A fire was burning over a month. So, and some major wildfires in the area. That's a rock quarry there. And there's a few more of them. That's the 605 freeway southbound, will take you to Long Beach. And once again, once that pond or the Santa Fe Recreation Area is abeam our left wing or 90 degrees to it, we will turn to a 244 course to El Monte Airport. And in a real airplane, we'd be scanning for traffic, which is other airplanes in the air. When you're VFR, visual flight rules, you constantly have to be scanning for traffic. And making sure that other airplanes are not too close. And we're coming up on our second checkpoint, and we'll turn to a course at 244. Just about abeam. Let's go ahead and start that turn. 244 degrees will be right about there. And it'll be the El Monte Airport, which is actually right there, if you can see off of my mouse cursor. If you look out at about our 12 o'clock or straight ahead of us, you can see downtown Los Angeles, and it's actually right there if I zoom in. That's the Irwindale Speedway here. They do drag racing and all kinds of race car stuff there, which could have also been used as a checkpoint if we wanted to. Back outside. All right, we're coming up on our third checkpoint, which is El Monte Airport, or actually, which has now been renamed as of about probably 4 or 5 years ago to San Gabriel Valley Airport. Okay, it's starting to get a little stuttery here. Alright, we're just about 90 degrees to the airport, and we'll turn to a course of 251 now to the Dodger Stadium, which is just about right here. The simulator is still a work in progress. It was released back in August, so I'm sure they've got some more optimizations and things that they're going to do to it to make it a little more smoother. It's actually pretty smooth. We're getting somewhat stutteriness. And we can almost see the coast, the Pacific Ocean there. Actually, we can. It's somewhat hazy. The San Gabriel Valley Airport in the background. We can wave bye to that. And we're getting towards downtown Los Angeles, which is a very busy airspace because you have Los Angeles International Airport. Too bad you can't open the windows. There is a maximum window open speed. In this case, it's 143 knots, which is the never exceed speed on the airplane, which is the speed you don't want to be unless you want the airplane to start breaking apart. The yellow arc here in the airspeed indicator is the caution range, and we only want to be in that airspeed margin if we're in smooth air. The aircraft will never get there unless he knows that the airplane down. This airplane is a slow airplane in terms of airplane speed, and we're still doing about we're doing 100 knots indicated airspeed. Our ground speed is probably somewhere around there because we have no wind, so we're doing about 115 miles an hour over the ground, which is considered actually pretty slow for small airplanes, or for airplanes. But she's a workhorse, and she's great for flight training, and she's actually very fun to fly. I've been considering possibly buying a Cessna 152 if I have to get a job far from my home, and just using it to commute. And this airplane's very economical for that. It's not very expensive to maintain, and it does the job. Now, of course, if the weather is bad, then it wouldn't be a flying day for visual flying. You'd have to fly using instruments, which requires an instrument rating, which is something I'm currently working on. All right, Dodger Stadium is off of our 10 to 11 o'clock right there. And then after Dodger Stadium, we're gonna maintain the same 251-degree course to the cemetery, which is one of the only checkpoints between the Dodger Stadium and Santa Monica Airport. So it's a really small plot of land, but we will be able to see it, and it will be off our right side this time. It won't be off our left. There's the Dodger Stadium there. the nice thing about track IR is it's got 6 degrees of freedom. You can move forward and back and left and right, up and down, and tilt your head side to side. As you can see, try flying like this. There's the good old Dodger Stadium. They just won the World Series not too long ago, the Dodgers. And downtown Los Angeles right there. This is the 110 freeway, the Harbor Freeway, which takes you to San Pedro, which is a port. And once we pass the Dodger Stadium, we'll go ahead and start a slight descent, just so we won't be too high when we're too close to the airport, which would cause us to go into the yellow arc. That's something we don't want on the airspeed indicator. There she is. Alright, we're about 90 degrees to the stadium, and we're going to maintain that same course. Our cemetery should be straight ahead off of our right side. We'll go ahead and start a gradual descent. I can actually see the runway end identifier lights, those blinking strobes. If you look closely, you'll see them, and that's the airport. We're going to continue on as planned. The only thing we really need to do is reduce the power, and that'll cause the nose to drop a little bit. And of course, as we start descending into thicker air, we'll go ahead and enrichen the mixture, which is pushing that red knob forward. And our cemetery is actually just off of our nose there. So we're somewhat close to it to where it's hard to see it. You can actually move the camera. There it is right there. There's 4,000 feet. In a densely populated area like this, it's always best practice to remain as high as you can in altitude. In the event of an engine failure, we wouldn't have much to go because this is the concrete jungle, the city of Los Angeles. We probably would have to take a freeway if we lose an engine. So if we're high enough, we might be able to glide to an airport. At this altitude, we won't make it to the airport, even though we can see it. We're only about 3,800 feet. We have Santa Monica Airport in sight, so we're just going to continue on this heading because the runway is actually aligned 240 degrees. We're almost aligned with the runway. Might be a little bit high, judging by the distance of the airport. So we'll reduce the power a bit more just to descend a little bit quicker. There's 3,500 feet. And straight ahead of us is actually downtown Santa Monica with those high-rise buildings. Definitely want to avoid those. Alright, we're at 3,000. We'll go ahead and go full rich on the fuel mixture. And we got the runway in sight off of our 10 o'clock. We're just going to do a straight-in approach. And once again, typically there is a traffic pattern at every airport, and there is an entry. If coming from the east, air traffic control at the airport tower will just give you a modified approach, which is exactly what we're doing. They wouldn't make you join the traffic pattern. Now, sometimes they would, but in this case, they probably would just give you a modified approach based on the direction that we're coming from. All right, we're all strapped in, and we've got the mixture full rich. Do that final checklist there. If you look closely, you can see Los Angeles International Airport right over there. Big airport, 4 runways. And we are aligning ourselves with runway 24 at Santa Monica. I'm sorry, runway 21. That's not 24. Santa Monica's 21. And if you look at our directional gyro here, you can see 2-1. If we continue to turn, we'll be almost aligned with it. That'll tell us that we are aligned with the correct runway. Because if our compass was reading, and our compass and our gyro was reading something else, like let's say 2-4, then we'd have to question that we're landing at the wrong runway, wrong airport, which has happened. That's why we always got to constantly check and make sure we know where we're at all times. Well, boys and girls, I hope you really enjoyed this flight, and we're about 3 minutes from landing. This was fun, and it just looks great. We'll start to slow the airplane down now, because we're a little bit too fast for landing. Our target speed is 60 knots, and we're at 100, so we're going to bring the power back. Once we're in the white arc, we'll get the carb heat on. Our flap operating range, which is this white arc here, is when we can start to lower the flaps. The nice thing about these airplanes is they're very draggy, so once you pull the power back, the airspeed starts to drop. Alright, we are in the white arc, so we'll go to 10 degrees of flaps. We'll make sure the flaps are both both symmetrical, not one is up and one is down. That's 10. We'll go 20. And we'll go 30. And there's 60. And we pitch for that airspeed. And we're right on it. Runway 21, which is identified. Looks like Santa Monica to me. Alright, and we'll go power back to idle, round out, and flare. The touchdown zone is those 2 white squares. That's about where we want to touch down. And there it is. Welcome to Santa Monica Airport. And there is no runway turnoffs here, so we're going to taxi all the way down. All right. Well, that wasn't too bad. It's about 25 minutes or so. There is the runway turnoff to the taxiway, which is right here. We'll We'll exit. We'll make sure we'll look both sides. Nobody's crossing. All right. Well, look at that beautiful sun and those sun rays. Well, boys and girls, I really hope you enjoyed that and learned something from it too. Tune in next time for future videos. Please like and subscribe. And remember, fly safe, have fun, and we'll see you next time.